In Chapter 25, you learned about the daily life in the Aztec Empire of Mexico. Now you will learn about the Inca Empire, a great society that developed in the Andes Mountains of South America. The Inca Empire arose from the 1400s. It lasted until 1532 when the Incas were conquered by the Spanish. From the north, the Inca Empire stretched more than 2,400 miles. To communicate across this vast distance, the Incas used runners called chasquis to relay messages from one place to another. Imagine you're a young chasqui. From your messenger station along the royal road, you see another chasqui racing towards you. You know he carries an important message from the emperor. You dart out of the message station and run alongside the other runner while he hands you a set of strings called a quipu. Knots tied at different places in the strings stand for numbers. They will help you remember the message. The other chasqui also gives you a verbal message. Once he is certain that you have both parts of the message, he stops running. His work is over. Now it's up to you to get the message to the next station as quickly as possible. This remarkable relay system helped the Incas manage their far-flung empire. In this chapter, you'll explore how the Inca Empire was built and maintained. You'll also learn about the Incas' class structure, family life, religion, and relations with others. 26.2, The Rise of the Inca Empire. Okay. At the height of their power in the early 1500s, the Incas ruled over a vast, well-organized empire. From north to south, the Inca Empire stretched almost the length of the Andes mountain range, a distance of 2,500 miles. You can see that in the green. It reached the Pacific coast to the west and the Amazon River basin in the east. Today, the territory includes most of Peru and Ecuador, as well as parts of Bolivia, Chile, and Argentina. Perhaps 10 million people lived under Inca rule. How did the Incas build and manage such a huge empire? In part, the Incas adopted ideas and institutions that had been pioneered by earlier cultures. Two peoples who have especially strong influence on the Inca were the Moche and the Shimu. The Moche lived in the northern coast of Peru from about 100 BCE to 700 CE, so somewhere up here. They built cities, dug irrigation canals, and developed special classes of workers. The Shimu kingdom of northern Peru flourished from during the 1300s and 1400s. Like the Moche, the Shimu built well-planned cities and used elaborate irrigation methods. They preserved the artistic traditions of the Moche and passed them on to the Incas. They also built good roads and created a message system using runners. The Inca adopted and improved upon all these achievements. The beginnings of an empire. The center of the Inca Empire was the capital city of Cusco, which was located in a valley high in the mountains of southern Peru. The Incas first settled in this area around 1200 CE. Apart from this fact, their early history is cloaked in myth. We don't know much else about it. According to one Inca legend, the people were descended from Inti, the sun god. Inti commanded his son, Manco Capac, to rise out of the waters of Lake Titicaca. Manco Capac then founded the Inca tribe. In another legend, Inti, again the sun god, appeared before a later Inca ruler. He said the Incas must become a great power and educate people they met. But for more than 200 years, the Incas increased their territory by only a dozen miles or so around Cusco. The Incas began expanding their empire in 1438 when they were attacked by neighboring cities, Chancas. The Inca emperor had many more citizens fled to Cusco, but one of his sons, Yupanaqui, stayed behind and led his army against the Chancas. Inca legend says that the stones in the battlefield turned into powerful warriors. Yupanaqui's victory made his people the strongest in the area. After driving the Chancas, Yupanaqui took the name Pachacuti, which means Earthshaker. He also seized the throne. Pachacuti and his son Topa Inca then launched a series of conquests against nearby tribes. With each victory, the army grew larger and more skilled. Soon the Incas subdued almost every major group in central Andes. In 1470, they conquered the Shimu. By the 1500s, their empire covered more than 350,000 square miles. Sorry about that. Roads and messengers. To manage their far-flung holdings, the Inca leaders came to rely on a system of roads. The two main routes were the coastal road and the inland road, which was called the Royal Road. Smaller roads connected them. Some historians have said that the Inca system of roads was as impressive as that of ancient Rome. About 15,000 miles of roads linked all corners to the empire. The roads crossed jungles, high mountains, and raging rivers. Inca officials used the roads to travel throughout the empire. Shelters were placed every 15 to 30 miles to give travelers a rest. That's cool. The roads also allowed the Emperor of Cusco to communicate with officials in distant places. The Incas sent messages by an elaborate relay system. They built messenger stations every couple of miles along the main roads. Shashkis, or messengers, carried the messages from one station to the next. Using this system, messages could travel more than 250 miles a day. A message consisted of memorized words and a set of strings called kipas. The kipas served as memory aids. Knots tied at various places on strings of different colors stood for numbers. The Incas had no system of writing, but their quipis helped them keep track of their population, troops, and tributes. We know tributes from the Aztecs. That's what they collected when they conquered somebody. As well as information about their legends and achievements. The oral comments that accompanied a quipu helped a trained expert decipher the message. For the Inca government, quipus provided an effective and substitute for their written language. There's Inti, the sun god. 26.3, class structure. Inca society was based on a strict organized class structure. There were three broad classes: the emperor and his immediate family, nobles, and commoners. Throughout the Inca society, people who were Inca by blood, those whose families were originally from Cusco, held higher status than non-Incas. As the Inca Empire grew, its class structure became more complex. Let's look at the roles and responsibilities of each social class in this empire. The emperor. At the top of Inca society was an emperor called the Sapa Inca. The Incas believed that the Sapa Inca was descended from Inti, the sun god. For this reason, the Sapa Inca ruled with complete authority. Everything in the empire belonged to the Sapa Inca. He lived in great splendor. When the Spanish came to Cusco in the 1500s, they were dazzled to see fine gardens, golden statues in jars made of gold and silver studded with emeralds. Servants carry the Sapa Inca everywhere on a golden litter. That's like a seat or chair in which a person is carried, a kind of carriage for high-ranking people. His subjects dared not look him directly in the eye. The Sapa Inca could have many wives with hundreds of children, but he had one primary wife who was called the Koya. Traditionally, to ensure the purity of the royal blood, the Koya was the Sapa Inca's full sister. The Sapa Inca chose his heir from their children. Nobles. Below the Sapa Inca were the nobles. The Inca nobility was made up of leaders who helped administer the vast empire. All nobles enjoyed certain privileges. They received gifts of the land, servants, llamas, and fine clothing. They did not pay taxes. A man had the right to marry more than one wife. However, nobles were not all of equal rank. There were three main classes of nobles: Capa Incas, who were considered relatives of the emperor; Hahua Incas, who did not share any royal blood; and Curacas, who were leaders of people conquered by the Incas. The highest ranking nobles were the Capac Incas. Like the emperor himself, they were believed to be descended from Manco Capac, the legendary founder of the Inca dynasty. Capa Incas controlled the empire's land as well as its valuable resources such as llamas, coca leaves, and gold. They held the most important posts in the government, army, and priesthood. The Apus, or governors, of the four quarters of the Inca came from this group. As the empire grew, the Incas needed more nobles to staff the government's complex bureaucracy. As a result, some people who were not true Incas gained entry into the noble class, called Hujau Incas. They were considered Incas by privilege. Often leaders from around Cusco became Hujau Incas. Sometimes people of common birth gained this status as well. Additional conquests created a need for a third class of nobles, the Curacas. The Curacas were local leaders of conquered people. Curacas carried out various jobs. Many collected taxes, others worked as inspectors, making sure everyone followed the laws and customs, such as wearing proper clothing and keeping clean homes. Curacas were required to spend time in Cusco learning these laws and customs. They were allowed to rule the people only if they followed the Inca way. Commoners. Most of the people in the Inca Empire were commoners who worked as farmers and herders. The Incas did not practice slavery in the usual sense of the word. However, they did require commoners to support the government, both through their products of their labor and by working on government-sponsored projects, probably like roads. Men did jobs like building roads, while women did jobs like weaving cloth. Inca farmers grew a variety of crops, including squash, peppers, beans, peanuts, and more than 20 types of corn and more than 200 types of potatoes. The most important crop was potatoes, which could survive the heavy frosted altitudes as high as 15,000 feet. That's taller than Mount Hood. Corn could be grown at altitudes nearly as high. The Incas enjoyed corn, fresh, fried corn, and popped corn. Inca farmers were required to give most of their crops to the government. The government placed the crops collected in storehouses throughout the empire. It's like a warehouse. Then the food was distributed to warriors, temple priests, and people in need. For example, the government gave food to people who could no longer work, particularly the elderly or the aged, the sick, and the disabled. 26.4 Family life. Families in the Inca Empire belonged to a larger clans called the Ailus. The Ailu was the basis of the Inca society. Everyone was born into an Ayu, and most people lived their entire lives within the borders of its land. So to understand the family life in the Inca Empire, we need to begin with the Ailu. Life in the Ailu. So an Ailu is like a group of related families. It's kind of like your extended family. If you have aunts and uncles and cousins and grandparents and whatnot, that would be kind of like an Ailu. Life in the Ailu. Groups of families made up the Ailus, which ranged in size from small villages to large towns. Each Ailu had its own farming land and homes, but the Ailu did not own the land. As you've read, everything in the empire would belong to the emperor or the Sapa Inca. The government loaned land to the Ailus for living and farming. The people of the Ailu then worked the communal land, that's like a cooperative land, a group shared, cooperatively to grow crops and produce food. Everyone had responsibilities to the Ailu and the government. All members of the Ailu, think of it like as an extended family, had to work except for the very young and the very old. The leaders of the Ailu made sure all the work got done. For instance, a leader might assign some men to clear the fields and others to dig irrigation ditches. The households of the Ailu came under the authority of a series of curakas. So remember, curakas is somebody who basically is like an Inca ruler, not like the Sapa Inca or anybody like that, kind of like a government official of a conquered land. One head of the household ruled every 10 households. 50 of these heads of household came under the supervision of a higher level curaka. At still higher levels, curakas managed groups of 100, 500, 1,000, 5,000, and 10,000 households. When we say households, we're thinking like families, extended families. One of the functions of the curakas was to make sure that the Ailus paid their taxes. The Incas had no currency, so they had no money. So taxes were paid in the form of good and labor. The Sapa Inca claimed 1/3 of everything an Ailu produced. Another third supported the Inca temple system. Commoners kept the remaining third for themselves. So if you did work and you were, say, a jeweler or potter, one pot would have to go to the emperor, one pot would have to go to like the empire, and then you could keep something for yourself to sell. In addition, men had to pay the mit'a, or public duty tax. Men paid the mit'a by contributing labor to government projects each year. That means working for the government. In response to the government needs, the leaders of an Ailu assigned work to its members. For example, men might repair roads, build storehouses, or work in the mines. Childhood. Most Incas were born into Ailus of hardworking commoners. The children of commoners learned about their responsibilities very young. Young children performed simple tasks around the home. As they grew older, girls took care of the babies, fetched water, cooked, made clothing, and learned how to weave. Boys looked after the animals and helped in the fields. The children of most commoners did not receive any formal education like what we have, school. Instead, they learned these skills they needed, as well as the Inca customs from their elders. Some especially talented boys were trained in crafts or record keeping so they could serve the emperor. Unlike boys from commoner families, the sons of nobles had special amautas, or tutors. Amautas taught religion, geometry, history, military strategy, public speaking, and physical training. That would be like physical education. Around the age of 15, all boys received a loincloth, a strip of loin worn around the waist. The sons of nobles underwent a much more elaborate ritual. These boys had to pass a month-long test of courage, strength, and discipline. After passing these tests, the boys swore loyalty to the Sapa Inca and received weapons as an Inca warrior. Marriage. Young men and women remained at home until they were married. Unlike the emperor and the nobility, male commoners married only one wife. Young men married in their early 20s, while girls could marry around 16. People usually married within their ayula. Some marriages were arranged by families, or by the young people themselves. In some cases, the local curacao chose a wife for a young man who was not yet married. Every year, the curacao also had a marriage market where young men chose brides. When a couple agreed to marry, they held hands and exchanged sandals. Once they were married, couples established their own homes. Commoners typically lived in a one-room house made of adobe, brick, or stone. Noble families had fancier houses with several rooms. While nobles enjoyed the help of servants, commoners worked hard to produce their own food and own clothing, and fulfill their responsibilities. 26.5. Religion. Religion was an important part of Inca life. Like other groups in the Americas, the Incas believed that gods influenced their daily lives. Consequently, they showed their devotion to the gods through a number of practices. Religious beliefs. The Incas believed that many gods who controlled various aspects of nature. For example, Ilapu was the weather god and the rain giver. Pachamama, the earth mother, and Mama Xocha was the goddess of the sea. The Incas believed that all these gods had received their power from a supreme god, Viracocha, the creator of the world. I apologize for butchering all those names. My apologies. But to the Incas, the most important god was Inti, the sun god. Inti was important for two reasons. First, Incas believed that the emperor's family was descended from Inti. Second, Inti was also the god of agriculture, which was the basis of Inca life. Everybody's got to eat. The Incas also believed that the spirits dwelled in certain sacred objects and places called huacas. Huacas included temples, charms, and places in nature such as springs and rocks. Because the Incas believed in an afterlife, the tombs and bodies of the dead were also considered huacas. People often prayed and made offerings to all these huacas. Religious practices. This looks like something interesting over here. The Inca religion was highly formal and required a large number of priests to conduct rituals and ceremonies. Priests worked at temples and shrines devoted to the gods. You've probably figured this out already, but the most important temples were those dedicated to Inti. The high priest, a close relative of the Sapa Inca, presided over the Sun Temple in Cusco. Priests who worked in the Sun Temples and in the countryside came from the same family of curacaos. Like the Maya, the Aztecs, the Incas offered sacrifices to their gods. Some sacrifices took place regularly. For example, each day, priests threw corn onto a fire to encourage the sun to appear. "Eat this, Lord Sun," the priest would say, "so that you will know we are your children." In many rituals, the Incas sacrificed live animals, usually llamas or guinea pigs. The Incas also practiced human sacrifice, but only on the most sacred occasions or in times of a natural disaster. At such times, children might be sacrificed because the Incas believed that their purity honored the gods. In addition to performing rituals and sacrifices, priests practiced divination to try to predict the future. Divination helped the Incas decide which course of action to take. For example, a priest might ask an oracle when the army should attack another tribe. Chosen women. A unique aspect of Inca religion was the role played by chosen women. Each year, government officials visited all the towns in the empire to search for the most beautiful, graceful, and talented girls between the ages of 8 and 10. These girls were honored as chosen women and taken to live in convents. There they studied the Inca religion, learned how to prepare special food and drink for religious ceremonies, and wove garments for the Sapa Inca and the Koya. So, the chosen women in Inca society were kind of honored servants of Inti, the sun god. Around the age of 15, many chosen women left their convents. Some went to work in temples or shrines. Others became convent teachers themselves, called Mama Conas. Still others went to Cusco and became wives of nobles or secondary wives of the Sapa Inca himself. A few of the chosen women were sacrificed at important religious ceremonies. The rest spent their whole lives either serving Inti, the sun god, or fulfilling their roles as wives of noble or the emperor. Only in old age were they allowed sometimes to return to their homes and their families that they had to leave so many years ago. (26.2) Relations with other peoples. The Incas had several methods of bringing other groups of people into the empire. They did not immediately resort to war. Instead, the Sapa Inca generally sent a delegate, that's like a group of people, to meet with the tribe. The delegate explained that the tribe could join the Inca Empire and enjoy peace and prosperity. Everyone understood that the alternative was war against the strong Inca army. When faced with these options, many tribes chose to join the empire. Makes sense to me. Their leaders then allowed to retain some local power. In this way, the Incas expanded their empires without always having to fight. I appreciate that. If a tribe resisted, however, the two sides met in battle. The Incas used a variety of weapons, including spears, axes, and clubs. They were especially skilled at hurling, it's like throwing stones with a sling, kind of like a slingshot. The fighting often cost the enemy tribe many of its men. Usually the Incas won. Sometimes the Incas moved a defeated tribe to other parts of the empire so that its people lost their native lands as well. Becoming part of the empire meant adopting the ways of the Incas. The leaders of a conquered Inca tribe had to build a sun temple. While the tribe could go on worshiping its own gods, it had to accept the Inca gods as the most powerful. Local leaders and their sons were brought to Cusco to study Inca laws as well as Quechua, the official language. Then they returned to their people as Curacas. As the new territory accepted Inca ways, teachers arrived to create Inca-style villages. When necessary, they organized aylus and taught the people how to build storehouses, irrigation systems, and terraced farming fields. Meanwhile, the Incas took an important religious object belonging to the tribe and kept it in Cusco. The Incas claimed they acted out of respect for the local religion. In reality, the object was held as hostage in the capital. If a tribe ever rebelled, the government could destroy that sacred object. Despite these efforts, sometimes the Incas failed to bring a tribe fully into their empire. In such case, they might remove and usually kill the local leader. Some rebellious tribes were forced to move away. The government then settled loyal members of the empire in their place. In this way, the Incas reduced the chance of resistance to their rule. Many historians have wondered what drove the Incas to conquer such a huge empire. Part of the answer may lie in a unique Inca belief. The Incas thought that even after death, the Sapa Inca continued to rule the lands he conquered. In order for the new emperor to establish his own source of power and wealth, he had to take new lands. Only then would he have the land that belonged to him alone. In this chapter, you learned about the life of the Inca Empire. In the 1400s, the Inca began rapidly expanding their power from their base in Cusco. Eventually, they created a huge empire that extended almost the length of the Andes Mountains. An impressive system of roads and messengers helped the emperor manage his vast holdings. The strict Inca class structure had three main levels: the emperor and his family, the nobility, and the commoners. All Incas belonged to aylus, which provided the empire with crops, goods, and labors. Like other peoples in the Americas, the Incas engaged in many religious practices to maintain a proper relationship with their gods. As empire builders, they used a variety of means to bring other groups under their control. All right. Thank you very much.